Okay, open up your Bibles to Genesis chapter 32. Genesis chapter 32. This is a very difficult chapter. I have struggled over this past week, and I will continue to struggle with this, but maybe today, with your help, we can crack the code or have some better insight. I will tell you what little I've been able to glean from a couple of passages in here, and maybe you can help me fill in the blanks or the difficult parts. Help me through this. But you'll be helping a lot of folks because every commentator I pulled up on these couple of passages don't know. Just don't know. And so it is a difficult chapter. So we open up with Jacob. He's on his way back home after 20 years of serving under Laban. He is you could say they made things right between each other with that covenant at the very end of chapter 31. And now he is taking all the wealth that he's gained with his family, and he's on his way back. So let's start with verses 1 and 2. Now as Jacob went on his way, the angels of God met him. Jacob said when he saw them, "This is God's camp." So he named that place Mahanaim. Mahanaim. Now, Mahanaim means two camps. And it's the idea of a camp of like you would see for an army. But that is all we're told right here. He has that little, and sees them, and then we move on to another thing. Why is verses 1 and 2 here in chapter 32? Why is as Jacob moves, going back into his own land, he comes across this host, seems like an army of angels in a camp, and he names it two camps.
One for us, one for them.
One for us, one for them. I think that's correct. And we're going to get into that more, but what's this running into the angels? Why is this here? What is he? Go ahead.
Because he needed encouragement, because he was really worried at the time, because he knew that he was going to be facing Esau.
That's right. I think you're right. This is another encouragement for him. And I do think it's interesting, as Jim said, he called it two camps. He has his camp, and there's the angels' camp. There's an interesting name that he gave this place. We see this name come up again a few times between here, I think in the book of Joshua, maybe the Chronicles has it too. But we have no idea where this place is at. But the number 2 keeps cropping up a lot in this chapter, and I think it's significant. I'm just throwing it out there, so when we get towards the end of the chapter, we'll come back to that. Maybe there's some significance. You can tell me that I'm an ignorant fool, or that maybe that's got some credence to it. We shall see. So,
Since you're glossing over it, not the only time in the Old Testament God does this. Is it Joshua? Look at the host that's around you.
oh, okay. Well, true. Well, but this is a different situation in the sense that he sees it, and we're told nothing about it. He just sees it. We don't get any conversations he may have had, or his thoughts of why it's there, or why it's there. We're left to speculate. I know that there you got the one with Elisha and Elijah, or Elisha, and then those that are surrounding them, the great host, the hosts that follow Joshua, and others as well. But this one is different in that we're not told why they're there. I think it is to show encouragement that God is with Jacob. And but I think there may be some more there as well, and I'll pick that up when we get to the end of the chapter as well. This chapter bookends with encounters with angels, the beginning and then the end. And I think there's something for us to see there, obviously. But can we find that golden nugget? I don't know. Verses 3 through 5. You have where then Jacob sent messengers before him to his brother Esau in the land of Seir, the country of Edom. He also commanded them, saying, "Thus you shall say to my lord Esau, Thus says your servant Jacob, I have sojourned with Laban and stayed until now. I have oxen and donkeys and flocks and male and female servants, and I have sent to tell my Lord that I may find favor in your sight. So as Larry was pointing out, he's worried about Esau, because how was that relationship when he left? Pretty bad. And when was he supposed to come back? Do you remember? Oh, no, you're still thinking back when he was with Laban. Remember, Rebekah, his mother, told him, I will let you know when things calm down between you and your brother, and then you may return. From our understanding, he never hears back from her. So have things not cooled off with Esau? Well, he doesn't know. So he sends some messengers ahead. And this is the sort of thing you do for somebody when you're about ready to enter their land. First, he calls him my Lord. He tells his servant, you call him my Lord. I'm the servant. He doesn't boast about all the things he has, but he does want Esau to know that I have enough to make my way. I don't need anything. And he's just wanting him to know that he's in town, that he wants to find favor in his sight. He wants to make things right. He wants to kind of cool things off before he even arrives. He doesn't want someone to come tell Esau that he's arrived. He wants to be the one to have his own servants go and let him know. So off they go there, verses 3 through 5. And then verse 6. We don't know how much time goes by, but these messengers return to Jacob, saying, we came to your brother Esau, and furthermore, he is coming to meet you, and 400 men are with him. Yet that doesn't sound good, does it? You already think your brother wants you dead. You send messengers, and they find out, oh, actually, he's already on his way. So he's heard. And he's bringing 400 men. If you're told that, what are the possibilities here? Why would he be bringing 400 men? There's two possibilities. That's right. One is he's going to kill them. He's going to kill them all. This is an army. This isn't an entourage. It's 400 men. Or Esau doesn't know the intentions of Jacob, and he's going to be ready for a fight if he needs be. So he's bringing 400 men. So I think Esau is just as unsure as Jacob is. And so, of course, that's going to put Jacob on edge. Verse 7, then Jacob was greatly afraid and distressed, and he divided the people who were with him and the flocks and the herds and the camels into how many companies? 2 companies. For he said, and that's the same word for, we see Mahanaim, the Hebrew name there, 2 companies. For he said, if Esau comes to the one company and attacks it, then the company which is left will escape. Now let's think about that. Is that, from a worldly perspective, is that a wise thing, what he just did here?
Yes.
Yes, it is. I agree.
It doesn't show faith.
Well, no, I'm not talking about faith. And I don't think we're meant to see that. But it's very wise what he's doing. If he loses one, the other one will get away. I'll still have something, and Jacob will survive. So he splits them up into 2 companies. Verses 9 to 12 is his prayer to God. Jacob said, O God of my father Abraham and God of my father Isaac, O Lord, who said to me, return to your country and to your relatives, and I will prosper you. I am unworthy of all the loving kindness and of all the faithfulness which you have shown to your servant, for with my staff only I crossed this Jordan, and now I have become 2 companies. Deliver me, I pray, from the hand of my brother, from the hand of Esau, for I fear him, that he will come and attack me and the mothers with the children. For you said, I will surely prosper you and make your descendants as the sand of the sea, which is too great to be numbered. Now before this, how many times do you remember Jacob saying a prayer, or it being recorded that he prayed? Yes, none. This is the first prayer we get from Jacob. And what do you think of that prayer? When you look at that, what kind of man is Jacob? Matured, very humble. No, you don't think he's humbled in that prayer?
I think he should have said the prayer before he decided to just divide things.
Well, yeah.
I think this is showing a lack of faith. And he said twice, "You promised to prosper me."
Yeah. Well,
So-
no, he
but
wasn't
I'm still
doing
gonna be
this.
scared and
And that's true. But I don't think we should be hounding on him too much. We do the same thing. When we are scared, we act. And then we may think, oh, I need to pray. But when you're within the grips of emotion, you generally act. I'm not trying to give him a pass. He is human. But he did pray. That's a good sign. Is it better than the Jacob we saw when he first crossed the Jordan on his way to Laban? He's a much better person now. Is he perfect? No. But neither are we. I see improvement. At least he prayed, and not only that, but acknowledged something. He can't do it. That's pretty significant, and we'll dive more into that at the end of the chapter. Go ahead.
my rebuttal is,
Rebuttal.
it took a lot of time to split the family into two camps.
Oh.
This wasn't something he said, 5 minutes, everybody go. This took days.
Okay.
There were lots of people, lots of animals. He had plenty of time to stop and pray if he wanted to.
So you think he said the prayer way after the fact? Or do you think he could have done it in the midst of?
I think he did after the fact based on the way it's written.
Because it's chronically written that way? Well, I think he probably said that prayer in the midst of the dividing of the camps.
Then why did he divide?
Because
Either
he's
trusted God to
he's
prosper
Jacob.
him, he trusted God to prosper him, or he didn't, so he's hedging his bets.
Oh,
I
Could
see
be.
that as a dichotomy.
could be, because we don't know. All we're given is some information here. But I think that God put it in here for us because he wants us to see a change in Jacob. I think that's also why we're told about the host of the angels in the beginning, and we're going to look at that angel at the end. And I think that number 2 plays a significant purpose. And I think that's why that's put in here, that he divided the camps into 2. God wanted us to see that. And that name, Mahanaim, is mentioned in the very beginning. We'll see 2 come up a few more times. That's significant. Remember, for Jews, our number is important. Very important. And I think they would readily see this before we would. All right, verses, but keep that in mind. I could be wrong. Maybe this is a lot more devious nature of Jacob than I realize. Verses 13 to 20, I'm not going to read through all this, but he talks to his servants, and he begins to divide up a lot of it, not a lot. He takes a portion of all his wealth. He's going to give it to Esau as a present, and he's going to send them in droves. You got the first group, and then he's going to put a space between them, and then another group, and space between them, and then another group, space between those. And so when one gets to Esau, and Esau asks this servant who's taking it, what is this? Oh, this is a present from your servant Jacob, and he's right behind me. Or actually, literally in the Hebrew is he's not far behind. So he'll get the present, and then he'll move on, and then there's another present. Oh, it's a present from your servant Jacob. He's not far behind me. And then another, and then another. And in the Hebrew, there's an idiom in the Hebrew. You don't see it in the English text, but it's to cover one's face. And what he's hoping to do, and this plays along with what Jim is saying, what he's hoping to do is that that Esau will be so flooded with all these presents, he'll forget his purpose for coming, to kill Jacob with all the gifts, and he'll be pacified, conciliate, you could say, that he'll stop his anger toward Jacob. Go ahead.
Manipulative.
He is being manipulative. But we all do this when we don't want to die. And he doesn't want to die. So he makes preparations, he prays, he makes more preparations. And there's nothing wrong with that. when I make prayers to the Father, I don't just sit back and do nothing. God will provide a way or not, but I'm still going to keep working toward whatever goal I have. And if God blesses it, he blesses it. If he does not, I move on. And so he's still working toward the goal of surviving. So he sends these groups. That was verses 13 to 20. Now, drop down there to verse 21. So the present passed on before him while he himself spent that night in the camp. So he sent them all out, and he's going to spend the night. Right? That gives you the idea that he's bedded down. He's going to go to sleep. Verse 22. Now he arose that same night and took his 2 wives and his 2 maids and his 11 children and crossed the ford of the Jabbok. It's a stream. It's about 30 feet in length, about hip high in depth. But when you have a massive group like Jacob, fording that is a lot of work. Now he beds down for the night, and then he arises during the night and does this. He's still troubled in his mind about Esau. He has some compassion here for his family and all that he has. He wants to get them across that river and moving. He doesn't want to get stuck on this side or stuck maybe in the daytime. He probably thought, maybe what if in the morning he catches me here at the ford? We don't know the reason, but he felt the need to get them across right away. In fact, it was so urgent, he got up that night to do it. He's nervous. He's upset. He's scared. And so he gets up. He does these things. Verse 23.
I'm sorry, quick question.
Go ahead.
In 22, his 11 children.
Yeah. You caught it. Yeah. Sons, not the daughter.
Does the Hebrew say sons?
Does not. It actually says children. I did look into that. But the Hebrew culture finds value in the sons and not the daughters.
Just wondered if the language was...
Some think that maybe Moses wrote in 11 sons because they were pertinent to being the tribes and the future of Israel, and Dinah was not. Dinah, whatever you want to say. So I think that's why she is not mentioned there. So, and anyway, I think we really don't know, but it is children, 11 children, sends them away. But I think she is there also. Unfortunately, they just don't see that as important. So verse 23, he took them and sent them across the stream, and he sent across whatever he had. So everything else was all sent away. The beginning of verse 24, then Jacob was left alone. He's alone because he has a lot of stuff. My guess is he wants to make sure everything got sent across, and he's waiting to see if there's going to be any stragglers in his large caravan that was missed that needs to be given directions or sent across also. So he's waiting. While waiting, Jacob was left alone, and a man wrestled with him until daybreak. When he saw that he had not prevailed against him, he touched the socket of his thigh, so the socket of Jacob's thigh was dislocated while he wrestled with him. Then he said, "Let me go, for the dawn is breaking." But he said, "I will not let you go unless you bless me." So he said to him, "What is your name?" And he said, "Jacob." He said, "Your name shall no longer be Jacob, but Israel, for you have striven with God and with men and have prevailed." Then Jacob asked him and said, "Please tell me your name." But he said, "Why is it that you ask my name?" And he blessed him there. So Jacob named that place Peniel, and he said, "I have seen God face to face, yet my life has been preserved." Now the sun rose upon him just as he crossed over Penuel, and he was limping on his thigh. Therefore, to this day, the sons of Israel do not eat the sinew of the hip, which is on the socket of the thigh, because he touched the socket of Jacob's thigh in the sinew of the hip. What happened there? Why is that there? Why did he wrestle with Jacob, this angel? What is that all about? Why is this put here for us?
Change his name. That's important.
Okay, we'll get to that. That goes back to 2.
Although it's more interesting to me to think about who this is, since most people think it's an angel that I have seen.
Yes. Well,
No, most think it's Gabriel or Michael. I don't know.
well, there's no way to know. Jacob thinks it's God, doesn't he? Something happened. We don't know what. We don't know why they were wrestling. Apparently that's not important for us to know. So we shouldn't dive into why are they wrestling. But we're told they are wrestling. Somehow Jacob knows this is a divine being in some way. But let's work through it, and there's a lot more in another passage for us we'll go to in just a moment that actually talks about this.
Remind me how old Jacob is at this point?
Pretty old.
Like 90?
He's close to 100, I think. He was how old?
77.
That's right. So same thing, he's in 97 at least, so close to 100, yeah. And he's wrestling.
But whoever it was couldn't take a 97-year-old.
Oh, no. Well, you got to remember, it was 20 years ago, he was able to move a large boulder by himself that would normally take 3 to 4 men. And he moved it. But that's there for us to know something about Jacob. Now, before I dive into this any much more, well, no, we don't have much time. So let's just do this. Hold your finger there in Genesis 32. Turn over to Hosea chapter 12. Hosea chapter 12. Hosea brings up this situation. And he gives us, I think, a little insight on how we ought to view this wrestling that's happening between this angel and between Jacob. I want us to start in verse 2. That's because he's talking about a different group in verse 1. Verse 2, it says, of chapter 12, Hosea, "The Lord also has a dispute with Judah, and will punish Jacob according to his ways. He will repay him according to his deeds. In the womb he took his brother by the heel, and in his maturity he contended with God. Yes, he wrestled with the angel and prevailed. He wept and sought his favor. He found him at Bethel, and there he spoke with us." All right. So what is the correlation that Hosea is making between Judah and Jacob? Because it starts off that the Lord has a dispute with Judah. And then he jumps over there to Jacob. Hey, look at Jacob. Didn't he also contend? Yeah, he was that way with his brother Esau in the womb. In fact, he even did it with God. Remember the angel he wrestled with? You see what Hosea is saying there? He's saying that what you see in Jacob is still in his people today. That same attitude. So that's what Hosea is getting at. Anyone, that makes sense? I'm getting some faces of not so sure.
Judah's contention was sin.
Okay.
We don't have any indication that Jacob's was sin.
He's not saying it was sin. He's saying that you're seeing this attitude. Although it was sin what Jacob did to his brother and to his father with the lies and the deception. But let's go back to Genesis 32 and let's go over a few things. Let's look at all the struggles that Jacob's had in his life. Did he struggle with his brother Esau? Where did that start, huh? Before he was born. Grabbed that heel. And then he struggled with him when he came in and Esau said, "Oh, I'm starving." And what did he do? He made a bargain with him for the stew. And then he stole the blessing. So he struggled with his father. And in every instance, who always wins in the struggle? Jacob. Then he goes off to Laban. 20 years of struggling. Who always won those struggles? Jacob. He always wins. What did the angel say? Verse 28, he said, "Your name shall no longer be Jacob, but Israel, for you have striven with God and with men and have prevailed." So he's always struggled with man. Always. And he's always prevailed. Now I said, well, I would get to that number 2. Now this is where, this is the struggle for me, is why is this here? The best I have, and this is my opinion, so take it with a grain of salt, help me out here if you've got a better idea. I think we're meant to see 2 sides of Jacob. He's struggling in 2 ways. He's struggling physically, and he's struggling spiritually. And that's why I emphasize that prayer and the change in Jacob. He still struggles physically with everything around him. And it's always Jacob. He's always fighting. He's prevailing, but not for long. But he finally got to a point here where he recognizes against Esau, he's not going to win. So who does he turn to? God. Oh, he does. He makes it pretty clear in that prayer. He doesn't think he can do it.
Again, his faith is weak.
Well, yeah, it is weak. But he's moving in the right direction. We were all at that point also, one point in our life.
After I've had a vision and had direct communication with God, if I turn around that week, strike me dead.
Okay. Do you think that Jacob physically, literally prevailed against God with that wrestling with the angel? Or do you think that is him prevailing spiritually?
What, with the angel cheating?
Cheating? Are you kidding? He held back. You think an angel
Just
couldn't?
hit his hip.
He could have wiped the floor with him if he wanted to.
But he didn't.
He did not, because it's there for us to see something.
See, I think it was a fairer fight.
I think, well, you could be right, but I think that we're meant to see something. Why would the angel wrestle with him and then let him win? Well, actually, he didn't win, but let it go the way it did. Because God wants us to see something about Jacob. And that's why it's brought up again with Hosea to help us, I'm assuming, to help us understand the passage. Jacob struggles. He's got all kinds of struggles in his life. He's always fought his way. He's never really turned to God. Again, how many prayers have we ever seen from Jacob? None. But we get this one. Why? Because we're meant to see a change begin in his life. You could say this is his conversion point. When he finally wakes up to reality, he can't do it. He's got a family. He's worried they're going to die. He finally turns to God. Doesn't mean he completely gives up on everything he's trying, but he turns to God. And then he begins to wrestle with this angel. Why? Why is that there? It's got to be there for us to learn something. And this whole chapter is about Jacob. So we're supposed to learn something about him, my guess. And then at number 2 keeps coming up. Why does he call it 2 camps? Why does that keep cropping up all the way through here? I think we're meant to see the 2 struggles that Jacob has here. Now, I'm still working my mind through this. I could be wrong, but at least for me, that seems to fit the best, sort of, but not, maybe not. I mean, I got holes in it. But that's what I see happening here. And when you look at Jacob's life, it's a life of struggles. And he always tries to do everything his way. Always. And he struggles and he struggles and he struggles. And now, at this one, he finally prays to God and turns to God. And then he has that wrestling match. And he refused to let go until he's blessed. And what does God do? He gives him a new name. Now, why does God give people new names? What does that signify? There's a change. It happened with Abram. God was with Abram for a long while before he changed his name to Abraham. And it happened at a point when you've grown up, Abram. I want to give you a new name because you're on a new path now. And the same with many other people. It's always because it's a new path. Remember Saul? Paul. Of course, that was a little different. But there's others as well. A name would be given them because there's a change in their life. So Jacob's name gets changed here. Why? There's a change. Something happened. Something happened. There's a change. And so we're moving forward.
Well, I think the angel was showing him that, contrary to the past, he can't beat everybody. And the angel showed him.
Yeah, look what I can do.
I'm sorry, Jacob won. He prevailed. That's what his name says.
That's right.
Prevailed. So Jacob did win.
He did win, but he lost the fight. But he won.
He won.
He just didn't let go. He lost.
He didn't let go, and again, I'm going to say he played the rules. Daylight's coming. Why that's a problem for the angel? Apparently the angel's a vampire. I don't know. Daylight's coming.
Or he has to be somewhere. Remember the angels that Daniel encounters? Hey, I was held up. Or, hey, I got to go. I have to go take care of something in Persia.
Their angelic watches.
Well, no, because there's other people in the world.
What?
And so he's got to go.
That Jacob won by playing the rules, if nothing else, or playing against the rules, however you want to look at that. I'm not letting go. You're not getting anywhere, even though I'm wounded until you bless me.
Okay.
So
Why?
maybe he's greedy.
Maybe. No. The angel, God gave him a new name.
Let's not. He's asked for blessings before. He got it from his father. He didn't get one from Laban. That wouldn't have worked. So this is kind of a pattern of his.
He is wrestling with an angel. Yeah, he doesn't let go, but he has lost that fight. He knows it. But he won't let go because he wants the blessing. 97 years old, that's pretty good. But he asked, when he asked for that, he says, okay, he's going to give him the blessing, but after he changes his name. And what does the name signify? He's prevailed against men and prevailed against God. He didn't physically overcome God. He didn't. There's no way. And that's not, I don't think that's the point. How did he prevail with God? How do you prevail with God? How do you and I today prevail with God? Let's look at that. No, not prevail over God. For you have striven with God, struggled with God, really, struggled with God and with men, and have prevailed. You did it. Think of the poor widow seeking justice. You remember her? That was that Luke chapter 19, I think. And she was going to the unrighteous judge. How often? What do we call her? The what widow? The persistent widow. What was the point that Jesus wanted us to get from that? Persistence in your prayer, and God will answer it. Well, why not the first time? Or the second? You can call that prevailing over God. Or with God. I shouldn't say over God. With God, you prevailed. Just like Elijah did when in his prayer. He prevailed, I think, spiritually. He's achieved something because what was he before? He's a sinner. What does he deserve? Does he deserve anything from God? Never, ever, never. But he did achieve something. He is growing into what God wants him to be, just like you and me. And he's growing. And when that happened, I think that happened in this chapter, God gave him a new name. And what does the name signify? We actually don't know what the name Israel means, except for what the angel says here. He's a man who struggles. And he has won. And in this case, it's with man and with God. How do you win with God? How do you win with God? By obeying and doing his will.
But it takes faith, which he doesn't have.
Well, yes, he does. Did he pray?
Eventually.
He did pray. Well, okay. Did you ever get baptized?
Yes.
Eventually. You didn't get it done right away.
Right away enough.
Well, Jim, that's not an argument. Same thing with him. He's trying. He struggles all through life. And it's a struggle because of why? Jacob wants to do it his way. But something changed here. He prayed, and he actually turns to God. How much is enough? Faith. How much is enough?
We see the faith by his actions. His actions show a lack of faith.
Okay. Oh, okay. So how much
Splitting the camp,
is enough?
enough to keep his camp together and trust in God.
Okay. Did he trust God?
I'm not sure.
Well, the angel seems to think so.
His prayer made it sound like he did, but he'd already done other things.
So you think his faith is just as weak as before he left his father's house?
Maybe not quite, because again, God's already spoken to him and given him a promise. But, again, by this point, I don't see the faith because he split the camp and he's hiding everybody.
Okay. Did he pray?
Yes.
Has he ever done that before?
We don't know.
From what text we have, from the
Written
text,
in the Bible, this is the first time. I have
yeah. So
not
from
saying
the
this.
information we're given, we see growth. Is he a cheat and a liar like he used to be? Did he ever cheat or lie with Laban, who was a cheater and liar?
Maybe.
He did not.
He deceived him, which is something like a lie.
Are you talking about when he left?
Yes. Laban
Okay.
said, you deceived me.
Okay.
So that's not so much upstanding,
All right.
but not quite.
So you got 1 in 20 years. Okay. He was a good, strong worker, and even though he was wronged so much by Laban, he did right before him until he thought his life and his family's lives were in jeopardy. And I've argued, not tonight because we're over time, that when you have that, God allows lies. I can prove that in the Bible. If you can save someone's life with a lie, if someone came into my office and says, put a gun in my head and asked me where my kids are, and they were at home, I'd say they're at school. I'm not going to tell them where my kids are. And I want to do my best to say a lie to stop them, whatever it takes. I think that's what Jacob was doing. So I don't think he was in the wrong in what he did of trying to get out from underneath Laban. And Laban was going to go and kill him with his kinsmen. That was his goal. That's why God stopped him and said, don't you say good or bad to him. And he took that advice. He wanted him dead, and he was going to take all that back with him. But we see a change in Jacob. I could be wrong. But I think we're meant to see something here, and I think it has to be about a change in Jacob. Something to think about. Yeah, I'll think about what you said, if you promise to think about what I said. Oh, right. So, well, we're 5 minutes over. I apologize. Let me wrap this up, and we'll have the closing song.